Finally, the U.S. military has begun training a small group of Syrian rebels in an effort to build a force capable of defeating the Islamic State in Syria. 4 years on, and the Syrian civil war seems to be spiraling deeper into chaos by the day, with 220,000 people feared dead, an estimated millions of people displaced having fled the country. We've learned, Jackie, since last June, that a country like Syria makes for the perfect breeding ground for groups like ISIS. And now that they've taken responsibility for attacks ranging from ones in Nigeria all the way to Texas, we can see that they pose not only a threat to unstabilizing the Middle East, but the entire globe. And now we're doing something about it. The U.S. has declared that we are setting up a 3-year plan to train 15,000 troops in Syria.
I mean, that's a lot of troops. I mean, 15,000. I mean, that's a small army that we are ultimately going to train in 3 years. And you and I were chatting. What this really says is we are now investing in a 3-year long, an additional 3-year conflict. So this war is not ending anytime soon. Or I guess the expectation is that ISIS is not ending anytime soon, and we really have to start protecting, or helping our allies.
Right. So, I mean, a lot of people can see that as good news, but at the same time, you're right. I mean, they're saying, wow, this is far from over. We can see potentially hundreds of thousands more being killed. Absolutely. That's the bad news. But I want to say that ISIS controls over 1/3 of the country. If you look at this map right here, that's terrifying. The gray area is all controlled by ISIS. And I want to say that that is just Syria. We're not talking about Iraq. If you look to the right side, immediately over, that's Iraq. That gray area would just continue all the way down. It's a very complicated thing that's going on in Syria. It's not just Assad's regime fighting ISIS. No. ISIS is there because there's a civil war going on. We have thousands of different armed groups not only fighting each other, fighting the regime, fighting ISIS now that they've come in. So it's extremely complicated, and we're seeing this being a conflict that is not going to be over anytime soon.
You hit the nail on the head when you said it's extremely complicated. And it's worth noting that Ashton Carter, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, the question comes, well, are we fighting Assad? Are we fighting ISIS? Who are we fighting? And in this case, what we're doing, the people that we are training are specifically designed, or I guess being trained to fight ISIS, not Assad. And he said they're not sure what will happen if they encounter, the Assad regime soldiers, and there's a squabble, as it were, but that right now these folks are being trained specifically to fight ISIS. 4,000 people actually applied for one of these positions. 400 were chosen after enormous scrutiny to really pick the best of the best, and the people they felt would actually be able to deliver, and who most importantly they could trust.
Right, and eventually we will, over years and years, we will build that up to an army of 15,000, which is huge. You mentioned fighting Assad. Just one more thing on that. I want to say, just to make things a little bit more complicated in this conflict, the fact that now Saudi Arabia has joined an alliance with Turkey, and now they want to start aiding different rebel groups to fight the Assad regime. We know that they've been a long time enemy of the Assad regime. So now that's just going to complicate things further. We're talking about two major powers, one a kingdom, one a democracy in that region, coming together and now getting in the mix while we're fighting ISIS, they're fighting the regime, while numerous different armed forces are fighting each other. It's just a complete mess. We want to know what you guys have to say about all this. We're potentially seeing a catastrophe unfolding that we haven't seen for decades. So we want to know what you guys have to say about all this and what could possibly happen in the future. Please comment if you haven't already. Please subscribe to the LibTV2 for more.